That doesn't look awful. Looks okay. Hello and welcome everyone to Gamestate episode 20. It is Monday, December 3rd, and today we are going to be talking about just the one GP Lisbon, but also the TCG Player 50K tournament, which occurred in Indianapolis, something Masters, something, I don't know what the official title is called, and also Star City Games Open Series, which returned to Baltimore, both their standard and legacy opens. I am your host, Adam, a winner is you, Ragsdale, and I am fortunate enough to be joined by our regular hosts. With me, as always, are Glenn Jones, Event Coverage Coordinator for Star City Games.
Hello, everybody.
Stephen Flevel, Poker Pro and Magic Enthusiast.
Hi.
And Cedric Phillips, Professional Magician and Magic Personality.
Hi, everyone. What? I said hi. Why are you laughing
No,
at
sorry,
me?
it wasn't you. Someone in the chat asked, "What is that god-awful noise?" And all I could think of was, "That's how I sound, man. I'm sorry." Like,
Yeah, that's how I talk.
I am sorry that I do not please you. Anyway, the first topic of our show will be GP Lisbon. It was a limited GP, a rather large one, in fact. It had over 1,300 people. It was won by one Ivan Flock, which I'm probably pronouncing really poorly, but he is a man that you may know both from winning the team portion of Worlds and also from the top 4 of the Team Limited GP in San Jose earlier this year. I think I have an actual coverage link for those in the chat. If I can navigate my browser sufficiently. There we go. Anyway, the first question I have pertains not so much to this exact GP, but just to Limited in general. While I was perusing the coverage, I noticed some of the grinder winning deck lists, I think. Anyway, one of them was greater than 40 cards, and I wanted to know the panelists' opinion of going over the legal minimum number of cards in a limited format. Do you think it is ever justifiable to go over 40 cards in a limited format? So, Cedric, tell me your wisdom. Is it ever acceptable to go to 41 or more?
My wisdom. I'm not especially good at math. That's where Steven will make me look like a moron. However, back in 2005, I used to play 41 cards in my limited decks a lot. And that's because like one of my friends at Purdue convinced me that there's not that big of a difference in between 40 and 41. And I don't know, my results were I won like a PTQ with the 41 card sealed deck. So then it's got to be right? And
that's how it works?
Yeah, I played.
Was it the most powerful deck you'd ever played?
Yeah, and then I played in FU. And then I played in a Team GP with a 41 card deck, and I went 4-0-8-0. So it's got to be right, I think. Like I'm of the opinion that you're probably supposed to play 40 cards. I don't really know how the math works out on 40 versus 41. Probably not in the 41 card deck's favor, but sometimes you just want to play 18 lands and 23 cards. So I'm not a hater. I'm okay with it. I'm not gonna like advise it, but if someone has like a really good deck and can't figure out what card to cut, and then you like an 18th land, go for it. That's what I say. And now Glenn is just gonna tell me how stupid I am. I cannot wait.
Cedric, you're not that stupid. You're just a little misguided, maybe is the better. I actually like people ask things, is it correct or incorrect to play 41 cards, and like the question itself is kind of ridiculous because like the answer to most questions that involve like just a pure binary decision in a game like Magic as well. Sometimes, like that's all you can really say. The 40 versus 41 is certainly much more often one than the other, but I think it's like believable on a statistical level that like you could have a deck that like wants an exact mana distribution that's easier to get on 41 than it is to get on 40, or that a deck has enough card draw or random tutoring effects that are somehow in this limited format that you want to have access to this card. Like maybe your Grizzly Salvage deck just really wants to up all those scavenge guys, but still wants to have a good mana base. You need to get a bunch of guild gates in. You still want to have lands that come into play untapped. You know, like all of these things could maybe push you in one direction. And these are just like hypotheticals. Like I haven't figured out if that's even right. But those are like valid pathways to arrive at the answer. So like that's sort of a long, vague answer, but the short answer is really no, unless you have a reason. Like, don't go over 40 unless you have a reason. And if the reason's good, then it's correct to go over 40. But that reason has to be pretty good, and it should be a very rare case. Personally, I can't recall ever having come across it because it's so rare and difficult to identify that even if I did, I would not have done it because it's just easier to go with 40 and be right 99.999% of the time.
So how do you feel about I always play 41 because I'm a unique snowflake? Is that a good reason?
That's the pretty stupid, yeah. That's misguided. Yes.
Right. Steven, how do you feel about going over the minimum?
I want to have like the right answer, but this is something that we are so far away from having the right answer for. I was thinking earlier today, so like I was trying to work out why does deck size matter, and it has to do with like how often you draw a particular card, and has to do with decking. Sometimes like decking can actually be a win condition, and sometimes you want to board in another card, so you deck less. And I was thinking, if there was a sealed format where everyone got one copy of Battle of Wits and no other cards, just basic lands, I was trying to work out what the right deck list was, and I had no idea, absolutely no clue. Like, it's definitely more than 200 islands in your Battle of Wits. I can tell you that. But I have no idea, like, should you be at 250? Do you want to be at 251 because you're next leveling them? And then I don't know how to play the deck either. Like, when you're on your hand of 1 and it's an island, you keep, right? But if you're on your hand of 2 and it's 2 islands, do you keep or mulligan? Because I'm not sure if you want, like, the 2 islands out of your deck already or chance to see 1 new card. So I have no idea. That's basically my answer. If you can convincingly make an argument to me that like you wanted a 41st card and didn't know what to cut, like I'll believe you. Because I have absolutely no way to tell you that's wrong.
I went to a very weird place to tell me that you had no idea.
I like to think, like, I like to take it and make it as simple as possible and then establish that I still have no clue. And at that point, I can just give up.
Oh, you did a fantastic job of that.
That's fair. I'm a little bit
Classic.
disappointed that none of you guys mentioned like weird bonkers formats where you're both like in triple original Ravnica, if you were both blue-black, there were sometimes situations where you would just board in life points because they were attacking your library every game. And like that's definitely a situation where that occurs.
That came up. I know I did that in original Ravnica draft. Like that came up sometimes, but even then I would board into like 45 or 46, like very minimal, just to like make it slightly tougher. And I only did that if like my deck actually wasn't fast enough to just kill them or whatever. So like I said, you have to have a reason. But like a starting 41, that just seems like incredibly unlikely. I know some people in the chat have been mentioning like the self-mill decks in Innistrad, and those. I don't recall that strategy specifically because I didn't actually draft Innistrad that much. I didn't like it very much. I know, I didn't like Innistrad. And I guess some people went way over on those, but I mean, you could probably have accomplished the same goals within 40. That was just like a different way to draft the deck to see. It seems likely to me at least, but.
Alright, the other thing I wanted to mention super quickly for going over the minimum was that if you draft really, really old formats where the cards are all laughably terrible, sometimes you just can't kill each other. So you need to have like 44 or whatever so the other guy decks before you, like, die of boredom. This is like...
That's an actual leveling game.
Yeah.
There are some claims that this happens in like the Masters, if like what's the like MED or something.
Yeah.
All this really means is that we have some suckers in our chat who did the Masters.
Yeah. Like that set online where all the cards are terrible or something. So I've never played a game of that stuff, so I have no clue.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of like Alliances draft, which I've watched some people do, But yeah, Masters is another good example of those level of cards.
You
Yeah,
watch
sure.
football draft
Yeah,
alliance?
it
It's like
was
you
it
didn't
was
do it
a
yourself.
quite enjoyable experience. It was quite good.
See that?
Yeah, some reason I doubt that.
Anyway, let us move on to our somewhat related point from GP Lisbon. There was a discussion in the coverage about the relative worth of grizzly salvage, and a somewhat unconventional, I believe, opinion from one Martin Yuza, who is someone you may wish to pay attention to, one of the foremost wizards in our scene today, talking about how he thought that Grizzly Salvage was one of the top 5 commons in Return to Ravnica draft, I think is what he said. I'll put the link in the chat. You can go see the thing for yourself. Anyway, I want to know what you fine gentlemen think about Grizzly Salvage. Do you hold to as lofty an opinion as Martin Yuza of this particular card? Cedric, you may go first. Do you
No,
you don't love the salvage?
no. I think this is interesting. Martin has been known to make statements like this, like bold statements or bold proclamations about things that he feels very strongly about. One of those things is mulliganing, and he always asks people if their mulligan button is broken IRL because he feels like Americans do not mulligan enough, whereas he doesn't mind mulliganing a 6 or 5.
It's so much work to mulligan in real life.
It really
True.
is.
Like
That really is a
like on
motivator.
Moto you just click yes or no or whatever and your hand goes away, but in real life you have to shuffle again and then it takes forever.
Yeah, it's just a real drain. I mean, obviously Martin is a fantastic Magic player, and you know, whenever he has something to say like this, you know, I like to look it over and really think about it. I don't really consider Grizzly Salvage to be a top 5 common. Maybe it is the reason I don't ever win with a Golgari deck is because I don't have enough Grizzly Salvages in my deck. But I mean, I think it's a perfectly reasonable card. I think it's an incredibly playable card. I don't think it's a top 5 common. I think I could I think I could easily find 5 commons better than that card personally. But you know, I haven't had like any success drafting Golgari, and I haven't really figured out a good way to draft it. So maybe like I'm just looking at it wrong, and like Grizzly Salvage is like the glue that holds the entire deck together, and I'm just stupid, and Martin's a genius, which is likely, actually, all things considered, because he wins more than I do. So, I mean, it's an interesting topic for conversation, which is obviously why we're conversing about it. But if I had to think about it, I would disagree with him. But again, Golgari aren't the kind of decks I like to draft. I prefer to draft Rakdos. I prefer to draft Azorius. So when I look at Grizzly Salvage, just kind of a meh, and I just move on.
Glenn, how do you feel?
I think that one of the things I want to talk about actually first is that the top 5 commons like thing that people talk about. It's like if you think about it, the top 5 commons in RTR are like super subjective. Like everybody agrees on Stab Wound, and most people put like Annihilating Fire somewhere in there. But like beyond that, it actually gets like pretty deranged depending on like who you're talking to. Like I know people who peg Axebane Guardian as the actual #1 common in the set. Like that's their jam. That's like what they want to do. And the card power level like flattens out really fast after like the top ones. And if you're drafting like the same decks all the time or like have strong preferences, and a lot of people have strong preferences in this format, then like your top 5 lists are super warped. So like it's already really awkward to argue about because you've got people, you know, including cards that you're just like, no, that's not even like close. Like Ogre Jailbreaker is not a top 5, or maybe it is, yeah. So I think Juza like probably exaggerating a little on Grizzly Salvage, but I think the card's definitely playable. There's Golgari is a guild that takes like a little more finesse to draft than most of the other ones. Like their others are pretty simple. Like Rakdos are like either the really low aggro deck or kind of the top heavy mid-rangier deck. But like those are the only really 2 ways to go about it. And you can like mix your way along that range. And then is just a Rakdos deck that has to play blue because someone else is taking the black cards. And Azorius is just a bunch of stainsy blue-white flyers and walls, just like it's been for like 10 years. And green-white is green-white. It's like the same basic thing. You can play it as like little guys with pump spells, or you can play like the populate thing. And so there are these dynamics that everyone's got. But Golgari, it's like, well, where do you stop when, like, what are your pulls? You know, like you can build a really kind of aggressive green-black deck that runs the green pump spells. You usually have to splash for like Common Bond or something like that if you want to do that. Or you can go like really top heavy into Terrace Worms and nonsense that's terrible. But like along that sliding scale, like when does it start to get bad, and like when is it like the correct spot for a lot of decks. Personally, I draft Golgari like pretty aggressively, and Grizzly Salvage is worse in those decks. But you can draft like Grizzly Salvage, oriented decks that stack a lot of the scavenge guys. Like if you can get Scorpions and Shamblers and Xanakev Locust, which is really good in that archetype, then you can turn Grizzly Salvage into like pay 2, draw like 1.5 to 3 cards, like depending on what you hit. And in the really aggressive decks, if you have enough options, then that can definitely just be a playable option. I've played as many as 1, or as many as 3, and as few as 1 in drafting, and I think it's like a fine card. And I usually play 1 in my Golgari decks, assuming I have like a splash or any number of realistic scavenge stuff, which if I'm Golgari, I do, or I'm aborted.
All right, Steven, do you have salvage-related thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's sort of an interesting communication problem in Magic when somebody says this is a top 5 common, because there are 2 things you can mean by that. One is that you think that the decks that this makes work are very good, and so you want to draft it high. And one is that you just think the card's very strong. And I assume that one user said that this was a top 5 common is because he thinks that salvage Golgari decks are very good and does not actually think that card is amazing. Because I don't think that card's amazing. But I can definitely relate to thinking that a card which isn't at the absolute highest power level individually goes in the best archetype and gives you the best win percentage. Champion of the Parish and Innistrad draft, like the first time I saw the card, I was like, oh man, I'll never touch that. And the second time I saw the card, I first picked it out of pack 2 with no white cards yet, because at that point I just decided that white aggressive decks were the best decks. And that makes a card really, really good if it goes in a white aggressive deck, and it's a pretty big card. So, the problem for me with this statement is he doesn't actually, clarify, I think this because, the high Golgari decks are the best decks, and I have a lot of success drafting them, and this is why they're really good. I feel like we need some more of that reasoning to really get a sense of what he even means before, being super critical of it.
Cedric, I hear you have more things to say.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of glossed over it a little bit, but I'm very against people when they ask me what are the top 5 commons in a set. I think that's completely preference. So I think that question doesn't really have a lot of value or anything. I don't really think it does anything, which is basically what Glenn brought up, which was you ask one person Ray T or whatever who I think you were talking about the X-Bane or whatever, and it's just Most Fennell, yeah, sure, Chris Fennell from Florida. It's he thinks that Axebane Guardian's the best card, and it's I don't ever want to have Axebane Guardian in my deck. It doesn't mean it's a bad card. It's just it's not among my top 5 commons. My top 5 commons, I don't thinking on it right now. It might not even contain Stab Wound because I like Rakdos so much, and I don't want any Stab Wounds in my Rakdos deck because then I can't attack them anymore. So, and that's not even that doesn't mean that Stab Wound is a bad card. If there's a Stab Wound and nothing else in the pack, I'm going to take Stab Wound, obviously. But I hate when people are what do you think top 5 commons are? And then they get in this argument of oh no man, Frostburn Weird isn't that good. Have you heard of Daggerdrome Imp? Build your own Baneslayer. I've gone on such wild rides as I took, and I get a lot of shit for this. I took an Invisible Stalker over a Bloodline Keeper, pick 1, pack 1, and Innistrad. And I would
give you a lot of shit for that.
Yeah, I did this week 2 of the format online because week 1, I forced green-white every draft, won every 8-4 I played in, and then Brad Nelson wrote an article about green-white, and he's dude, Travel Prep, literal best card ever. And that was obvious. And then I started forcing Invisible Stalker decks because my friend Tommy Ashton was dude, look at my draft deck. And I watched him play, and then he literally crushed every person no matter what card they had because, Stalkers is stupid, it has Shroud, whatever, there's, no answers for it in the format. So I was all right, I'm going to start forcing Invisible Stalker decks. So I started forcing Invisible Stalker decks, and just never lost ever. Even though, Bloodline Keeper versus Stalker is a better card or whatever, I was forcing Stalker decks because I thought the Stalker archetype was a better archetype, and I just never lost with it for 2 weeks. So, if people are going to ask, what's the best rare in the set? And everyone's it's Bloodline Keeper. And it's I took Invisible Stalker over it. Yeah, I mean, that's wrong in a vacuum, but what I was trying to accomplish, I think it's reasonable to, do something like that. And I would, do that in a Grand Prix or whatever. And I have done it before. So, like having discussions about like what's the best card, top 5 cards, all that stuff. I think they're pretty useless exercises. I think you can have a discussion with people on like what cards are good and what cards are bad in certain archetypes. But as far as like listing them 1 through 5 or like what's the best, like what does it matter? You're never gonna have a pack with all 5 of those cards in it anyway, and then you have to pick one.
It seems
I think
like
it's just stupid.
yeah, it seems like when people ask you to list your top 5 commons or whatever, they're actually trying to trick you into telling them something useful, as opposed to like, we're having a rotisserie draft tomorrow, and I really need to know, like, every card in the set's gonna be there, I want to know what to pick. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I don't know. I mean, maybe people think that those are actual useful metrics to have, like in and of themselves, the top 5 commons, but it seems like mostly they're just asking for different information and conveying the question poorly.
Yeah. Like a far better question is, like what are the key cards in the archetypes you like? But that's also a much deeper discussion, and most people can't handle, actually discourse. It's tough.
I talk, and then you talk, and
Can't
I
handle
don't
it.
even know what's going on.
Whoa! I have to remember what you said while saying the things I say.
Sometimes I have to say another thing.
Yeah, it could be tough.
You
Alright.
get you get the actual statistics every now and then, where you get the like Magic Online email, and it says these are the 5 cards which were the winningest cards in 8-4s over the last month or whatever. And there's like all white or green cards, because white and green is the best archetype. Like completely.
I think another reason it's probably asked a lot is for just the pure purposes of validation. Is like they want to hear you say a card they think is really good. They're like, yes, I got that one right. That's actually
Yeah,
probably a
see that?
significant motivator for people asking the question. I would say like
definitely agree with that.
40%ish, maybe higher, maybe way higher.
People you can get people real mad if you say cards that they like don't think, or say cards they think are good or bad. People don't like that.
Yep.
Alright, well, I think we're going to move away from the limited GP, but we're going to saunter over to the TCG Player 50K, which was won by one Ryan Hip with blue, white, red mid-range in a top 8, which was... I was thinking about saying dominated, but we'll just say it had a lot of blue, white, red in it. There were 3 blue, white, red decks, 2 of them with Hellkites, 1 of them with no Hellkites. And then there was also 1 Bant deck, 1 red-black deck, 1 Reanimator deck, 1 Nightshade Peddler deck, which we'll get to in a minute, and something else, which I don't have listed here because I listed Bant twice because I'm a moron. Anyway, I will put the link in the chat. You guys can
Did you
go...
say the rights deck? Because I think that was...
well, I said Reanimator, which is
There are
okay.
two different rights.
What I'm
There's a
choosing to
4-color and a
call it.
junk rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anyway, there is the link to the decks. You guys can go check them out. The first thing we are going to talk about is the Nightshade Peddler deck, because I think Nightshade Peddler is very amusing. The Nightshade Peddler deck presumably has come along from the deck we saw like 2 months ago in the Star City Open thing that did the goofy Gilded Lotus Deadeye Navigator thing.
Yeah.
And now we have a slightly more reasonable deck with Olivias and Nightshade Peddlers and Staticasters, I think, as well, that just basically kills all your monsters. This came from like a European Grand Prix, I think, and then came back across, and there's 1 of them in top 8, actually 2 of them in top 16, so I want to know what you guys think about the Nightshade Peddler brew. Cedric.
It's adorable.
You just want to hug it?
That is a word I would use. Yes, I would love to hug it, and I think it's adorable. I think it's super good when people don't have an idea of what exactly is in your deck list. If I were to play against this deck or whatever, I would and they start casting some of the cards. I'd be like, okay, I've got an idea of what this deck does, but I don't know all the cards in this deck. They're just Staticaster. He has a green mana. I'm like, there's probably a Peddler lying around in there or something, and maybe there's Olivia and stuff like that. But I think this deck gets a lot of its wins because there are some cards that people just don't see coming from this deck. And I think he has 1 Zealous Conscripts in his deck, which is a card that you're just whoa, where did that come from? Or an Evil Twin, which is interesting. not quite sure what that's doing there either. Like there's like 2 Falkenrath Aristocrats, just like some cards that don't really expect, and you have an idea of what's going on, but you don't have the exact idea of like what cards are taking place, and so the person can take you by surprise because you don't have like all the information. Whereas like when you're playing, and there's like a wide range of cards that can be playing because there's so many colors in their deck. When you're playing against like a blue-white-red deck, for example, you can narrow down what cards the person's going to have in their deck and what they can do. And so I think that this gives this deck a bit of an advantage. I don't think this deck is great or anything because it's like super mid-rangey. It doesn't seem like it would be great against the decks that try to go over the top of you, like the Bant control deck. Potentially bad against Reanimator. Maybe like Reanimator just doesn't line up very well against Peddler with anything. But I don't know. This deck seems okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just, it's cute. It's fun. I don't think it's very good moving forward. That's what I'll say.
So when you're peddling the Nightshade, what is your wheelhouse, do you think? Like, what do you really want to be paired against?
So like, that's a good question, right? Like, I think the one deck that you would absolutely crush with this deck is green-white. Because, like, what are they going to do about, like, Peddler or whatever? Peddler plus anything that guns stuff down. Like, Selesnya Charm can take out Olivia once it gets too big. Like, once it becomes a 5/5. But, like, if they have Peddler plus Staticaster and have gotten that set up in, like, a reasonable amount of time, especially because Staticaster has haste, then, like, they just get to gun everything down. There's just green-white decks just like, I'm dead then. I can't do anything because I'm green-white. Like I have a Faith Shield that can stop it for like an attack step. Like something like that. But I think that like if it had to play against a deck every round, I think it would be that deck.
Alright. Glenn, do you wish to peddle Nightshade?
I have already peddled Nightshade a fair bit in recent weeks.
Tell me more.
I saw Arcology on Modo 4 daily with a Staticaster Peddler list that ran like Angel of Glory's Rise combo in it, and was just Chronic Flooding and a bunch of other nonsense. And it was fun. I don't think it's like especially good or anything. Then it had success at Bochum, I believe it was, in the hands of Max Pritsch and John's something Merkel. He's the guy who won his first Pro Tour.
Chen Moritz Merkel, I think.
That's it. So those guys both played it, and I think like one of them 9-0'd and then the other one top 16'd, which is really awkward. But like, I mean, so the deck seemed kind of realistic, and I think the one that top 8'd the TCG player was almost like the full, though just their exact deck, like maybe off by a handful of cards. Like it was very, very similar. So maybe that's real. I know I looked at it and it didn't seem that great. I played like a couple matches and felt like super clunky, and I just got bashed by like some flash decks and a Bant deck, and like I was pretty good against everything else. It's like, I mean, this seems fine, but like if I really want to beat those decks, I can just already like decide different ways to beat them. I don't have to do hijinks, basically. So I really do like the idea, and I think that there might be a place for it. It'll probably get a lot stronger when it has a better mana base with Gatecrash, because I know like building the mana base for that deck, I was just always like, God, my kingdom for a breeding pool. Like it would make everything in my life so much easier. But who's to say? I think there's so many directions to go in with it. You can run like lots of colors. I mean, like I just said, someone's running Chronic Flooding and like Unbarrow Rights in a deck that couldn't make black mana. Like we're going really deep in some of these decks these days, and Gatecrash is certainly going to just make it even weirder. I think that Staticaster itself is like really pretty well positioned right now. Whether you like to pedal or not, it works well with like a ton of cards, like burn spells that aren't big enough. It's excellent against Thalia, for example, is where it's like a real wrecking ball. In conjunction with something like Staff of Nin or Curse of Death's Hold, it's really good. So yeah, I would not write Staticaster off, even if Nightshade isn't your thing.
Okay. Do you have any Nightshade-related thoughts, Steven?
I definitely agree that like Staticaster is pretty exciting to have in a constructed format. I think people like don't quite understand how big a deal it is to be able to tap to deal 1 to a creature, but it's a real big deal. I like this Nightshade deck a decent amount. It's like not what I would be playing, but were I to pick the archetype, I really like where it's gone, where we started like super high And I just think it makes more sense to have more of a mid-rangey, like it's almost a low to mid deck at this point. And it just makes a lot of sense to me because you have to respond to the aggro decks in the format now, and you get a lot of late game equity out of your combo anyway. Like that's why you're playing the deck, to do some powerful thing. So I like that it feels a lot better rounded, this list that we're playing now. The problem I have with it is I just feel like you can do more powerful stuff in the same sort of mana curve pretty easily in this format, and other people are doing it. And I just would rather be doing that.
Okay. That's all the peddling we get for now.
Nightshade's just not that interesting, I guess, man. I mean,
It's a very ugly card, though.
It was a little bit more
Yeah, that's
interesting
true.
before, I thought, when it had Deadeye Navigator. I was slightly more interested.
It had so many cards before.
Yeah, it had some things. Alright, well, the other thing I want to talk about in this top 8 specifically is Blue, White, Red, since I think that was sort of the big story of this standard tournament. We saw 3 Blue, White, Red decks, one which I think is fairly different from the other two. Like, I wouldn't lump them together in terms of how they actually play, but they are in fact Blue, White, and Red. So why do you guys think Blue, White, Red was the big deal here? Do you think it was just variance, or do you think Blue, White, Red has something that the other decks lacked? Cedric, how do you feel about a Blue, White, Red deck?
I'm resigned to my fate with Blue, White, Red.
Yes.
As I told these guys at the beginning of the show when we were off air discussing what we're gonna do, I've tried every aggressive deck in this format to actual like little to no success. I've tried all versions of zombies. I've tried Mono Red. Hell, I even played Mono Red at the damn Grand Prix to 67th place. I've tried White Green Humans. I've tried all these aggressive decks, and just no, none of them. None of them are good enough, which is very strange because like the cards in those aggressive decks are so good, but the cards in these blue decks are just better, and it's frustrating, but it's true. And I wish there was something that lined up really well, and this is what these aggressive decks are missing. There was an answer that lined up really well with all of like the awesome creatures in the format. Like if you look in formats past, like Path to Exile is like the perfect example of just a card that like, yes, there were awesome creatures everywhere, but it just took care of them all for 1 mana. Like, there was a drawback, they got a land, whatever, but it just lined up very well against all the creatures in the format. Now it's just like, if you play Ultimate Price, you get horribly punished by, like, your opponent playing Loxodon Smiter, or, you know, they play, like, Geist of St. Traft, or they play Falkenrath Aristocrat. In reverse, like, the same can be said about Victim of Night. Like, that card does some things to take care of some answers, and then doesn't take care of the others. And it's like, well, how many of those am I supposed to play? And what am I playing against this card? Am I just dead? And it's like, well, yeah, you're just dead. And the card that keeps, like, falling that way for me is Restoration Angel. It's like, you'd like to be able to tune your deck to be able to beat, like, the Zombie's Mirror by, like, starting Tragic Slip and having Searing Spears and, like, Flames of the Firebrand because it's good against green-white. And then, like, you play against Restoration Angel and you want to kill yourself because you just can't do anything about it. And it just always ruins you, and you just have to hope they don't have it. Alternatively, there are cards like Augur of Bolas that are difficult to get through, Snapcaster Mage, and just the card quality in these decks makes it so that you try to build your deck, your aggressive deck, to try to be able to beat, like, the other aggressive decks, and then, like, the threats from Blue, White, Red, and then, like, the threats from, like, Bant Control, but you can't do it because, like, the cards don't exist because there isn't just one smooth, like, clean removal spell, like Path to Exile, or, like, Terror. I would love Terror right now. It would be very good. And so, like, because you can't do that, you have to go to a deck that, like, has a clean answer to deal with stuff. And, like, to me, that clean answer seems to be Supreme Verdict. Like, that seems to be, like, the cleanest answer to be able to take care of different threats. And then, you know, the creatures in all of the decks are all very good, so you're just trying to find the best card to be able to, like, clean up the other creature decks in an efficient manner. And because, like, Green-White doesn't have access to a card like that, and because Black-Red doesn't, and it seems like Verdict is the only one that really takes care of everything the way that you want it to, I think that, like, the Blue, White, Red decks are just the best ones moving forward. Also, Glenn, yeah, Azorius Charm's a good Magic card. Yeah! Yeah, I said it. Yeah, go ahead. Wipe those shoulders off, dick bag.
Dust the shoes off, too.
Yeah. It's good because it's a clean answer to things. It just takes care of something every time. Even even if it delays something, it's just clean and it always does its job. Whereas every time I have like a Victim of Night in my hand and I'm playing against the mirror, I just can't deal with it. It's so infuriating, but there just isn't a card that exists that always takes care of something every time. So moving forward, and this pains me very much, is I am going to be playing Blue, White, Red in Vegas. Some concoction of it. Either, this one of these, like, Thundermaw ones, or maybe the one that Jerry played without Thundermaw. But it sucks, because you know me, I don't play Hallowed Fountain, but I'm about to, and probably do it real bad in front of a live audience, but it's just the best deck, in my opinion. Or, like, it feels like you just have to be playing Hallowed Fountain to have success in this format, which is, like, a weird thing to say, because once we get the Star City results, we'll have that discussion, but that's how I feel now.
All right.
There are so many days left for you to decide you're playing a deck that isn't that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
would.
tried everything.
I would hazard a guess that he will probably think he's playing that deck right up until several hours before the tournament starts.
Right about when Jerry goes to sleep.
Yeah.
Have you tried the Blue White deck yet?
Blue, White, what, Flash?
Yeah. Have you actually played this deck?
I mean, I haven't played with it before, no. But, like, I mean,
see.
my point is that I have tried all of the aggressive decks. I've tried all versions of zombies. I just lit 30 tickets on fire last night testing black-green zombies. Holy shit, that deck is bad. I tested Mono Red all week. Like, I tested Rakdos. I've tested, like, blue-white humans, green-white humans, and just, like, all of these decks that attack you and, like, should be, like, pretty good against Supreme Verdict decks. And it's just, like, it just doesn't work. Like, the decks just don't have that much play to them. You can't really, like, play the aggressive decks the way that I want to play them, and, like, by playing them balls out and just running all your cards out as fast as you can instead of trying to pace things, you just have to open yourself up to Verdict. But, like, if you slow yourself down, then, like, you're just going to get ruined by, like, Charm plus, like, Snapcaster on Charm, like, just stuff like that. So I just don't like how any of the aggressive decks play out in this format at all.
How do you feel about Bant? You want to recycle your Sphinx's Revelations with Elixir of Immortality?
That is not going to happen.
You still have some morals?
Next week on Gamestate.
Yeah, as someone brought up in the chat, I did play Fairies once. I played Fairies at a Pro Tour, and I did play Fairies in a PTQ as well. Got 9th place on Breakers, and, I mean, the PT went fine or whatever. Like, I do have experience, playing blue decks. I did play Solar Flare for a very long time to a lot of success.
That's a real man's blue deck there.
There was blue mana in it, all right? And Aeon Chronicler was a good card. So yeah. I do have experience playing Islands. I did win a state championship with Merfolk. So I can do it, but preference is to not do it.
All right, Glenn, Blue, White, Red. How do you feel?
Man, that long removal complaint sounded so familiar.
I hate you so much.
Oh yeah. You should watch Gamestate. They cover a lot of hot tech, and you can figure this stuff out a couple weeks in advance sometimes if someone gives you some good advice. It's rare, but every now and then there's the nugget. The Blue, White, Red deck is pretty good. It's the deck I was playing on Moto for most of last week after Jerry's top 16 in San Antonio. Like, I liked the deck. It seemed fine. It's not, like, as far ahead of Black Red as I would like it to be moving forward, and Black Red doesn't appear to be, like, going anywhere. But it's definitely a strong deck, and it has all the tools, which is what I like the most about it. Like, it can win, like, any matchup except for Bant. It's pretty dead there. But against everything else, it's a pretty reasonable choice as long as you play competently and they mess up a little bit, which is like how a lot of Magic's matches go for good people. I know that of that top 8, like the two players, I know a few of the players, but David Bauer and Jerry are both two of the ones I would say are like the best players in that top 8. Like, I've seen them play a number of times, and they're both quite competent. David Bauer, you might not know, but he's top 8 at an Invitational, a couple Open Series, like maybe even 2 Invitationals now. I can't really remember. He's a strong performer in the Open Series and definitely an opponent. It's a friend too. I was rooting for him to win. And I think that what we saw really happen in that tournament was like the split between what Jerry was doing and what these guys were doing, because they are different decks. We saw like the blue white red deck with Hellkites emerge earlier, and then Jerry's deck is more like flash splashing red. So even though they got like the same mana base, the strategies are pretty different. And I actually think that like Jerry's style might not be so successful moving forward with those decks. It's like too hard to niche yourself right into the spot on the metagame where you're like able to fight off everything and able to like survive a deck very similar to yours, packing like a wider range of threats. It's just tough. So I'm not sure if blue white red, the slower version, is going to be that great moving forward.
All right, Steven, do you have blue white red related thoughts?
I wanted to ask you, Glenn, what the black-red matchup is like in your experience. Like,
it's pretty. It kind of depends on their version. I've found it to be mostly like kind of a coin flip, but they have a little more. Like, there's a little more variance to it on their end, because like if they like curve out a bunch of guys but don't have like a top end guy, then you're fine. Like an Augur Bolus almost kills them all by itself. And then but if they have like a slower hand and you're stuck with like a bunch of Pillar Flames and they just come at you with like multiple Hell Riders and Hellkites, it looks really awkward. So I think it's pretty flippy, maybe slightly edged one way or the other, but I can't really tell which. I haven't played enough matches, and if you change a few cards around, it like switches pretty quick.
huh. Okay, cool. I thought that that matchup was a lot worse for blue white red than you're describing.
I don't think it's really. I don't think it's bad. I think it might be like slightly unfavorable. I do not think like if I was playing blue white red in a tournament, I wouldn't be like, well, hope I don't face any zombies decks today, or I'm not going to win. I'd be worried about the Bant decks.
Right. Yeah. I was going to hypothesize though that the fact that blue white red is doing so well in this tournament is just that black red didn't show up as much at the top tables as it has been at the Star City Games tournaments. Like it's almost not there in the top 16. And I think that, yeah, I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, like I said, it's very close anyway, and like you can't win all your coin flips, so you know if you just lose a few, you're not in the top 8 anymore. I think that from what I felt like reading some of the coverage and like friends going to the TCG player, it did not seem like people were like interested in playing black red in that tournament. Everyone was looking for something else, whereas that was definitely not the case in Baltimore.
Yeah.
So before we move on, I just want to ask a little bit about. I know you mentioned, Glenn, that Jerry's sort of blue-white splash red list historically not super good against Bant. I know we saw in one of the GPs Jerry did well at. He got paired against Reed and was just like, "What? Oh, the Frown Yard. All right, well I guess I'll go there then." And it looked like in this tournament, in the TCG player, his strategy was to just add 3 big Jaces to his sideboard and like some Dispels, and you just like jam those and deck them faster. Seems like is the idea. You think that actually works? Like, do you think that solves the Bant problem?
Jerry's a fan of aggressive sideboarding when he like meets a matchup like that. Like take the Niv Magus deck. Like when they were developing that for the Pro Tour, they tried all kinds of shenanigans. Like he wound up playing Cloud of Dominus of all things, but like before that, he was running like a board with a bunch of rituals and blood moons to just try and turn 2 blood moon Jund and be like, hope this works. Like, this is just like how his mind works. Like he literally tries to find like just a really powerful angle and like hammer them on it. And I imagine like how bad can it be? Like the Bant decks don't run that many Jaces. They run like 2 or 3. Some I think used to run 4. I don't think they run 4 anymore though. I could be wrong about that though. Like the Jace is getting worse in the format, I think, as it continues to move. It's just not a very good card right now. So like that's a reasonable time to start playing big Jace because he gets much better when people don't have ways to defend. Also because the removal spells of choice are like detention spheres, things can get weird too. So, but I don't know how well it worked. If he can stick a way to keep them from countering the Jace, so he always gets to land it, like Curse of Echoes, then it seems like he'll always get there, and Dispel can sort of serve that same function.
All right, fair enough. I'd just like to specify that the only reason I know what Cloud of Dominus does is because Jarvis had me look up Josh Cho's Legacy deck, which we can talk about when we talk about the Legacy Open. But let's amble on over to the other standard tournament, which would be the Standard Open from Star City, Baltimore. Star City's triumphant return to the city of Baltimore. I don't know exactly where's my top 8 listing here. Yes. Okay. So Star City, the standard, was won by Patrick Shiflett with Naya midrange, which is a little bit interesting, in a top 8 of 4 black-red decks, 1 Naya deck, 1 Jund deck, 1 blue-white deck, and 1 Ali Antrazi. So we saw an awful lot of black-red. Not only were there 4 in the top 8, there were 10 in the top 16. Is that correct? Just like an unreasonably large number?
Yeah, that's quite the streak. From 11th to 18th. Just black-red.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is the massive number of black-red decks at the Star City Standard Open and how you guys feel about that deck. I know, Cedric, you were not super kind to that deck when you were talking about it earlier. Elaborate on your black-red thoughts.
Actually, black-red is not super kind to me. I am a very nice person, and I try to get along with every deck that I play with, because I like to become one with every deck that I play. But if the deck will not be nice to me back, I have no choice but to move on, okay? And this deck, it hates me. Because every time I need a 4th land for my Hell Rider or my Falconwrath Aristocrat, it's Rakdos Guildgate. And that can cause a person to kill themselves. I don't know if you knew that. And that's not okay, because I shouldn't want to kill myself when I play a deck in Magic. This deck is obviously very good. It has won 2 Grand Prix. There are 10 of it in throughout the top 16 of this tournament. It's obviously a very, very good deck. It's not going anywhere. People are going to keep playing it no matter what happened in the TCG the TCG 50K with a bunch of blue, white, red decks there. You know, I expect to play it against it 3 or 4 times when I go to Vegas this weekend. That's just the way it's going to be. I mean, there's not really a ton that you can say about it, honestly. I mean, like, it's pretty straightforward, right? Like, you've got your zombies, you've got, you know, your Falconwrath Aristocrat, which I think is, like, the best creature in Standard. You know, then you have, like, some removal spells, but none of them are very clean removal spells, as I talked about earlier. And you got, like, even though this deck list has 21 lands, that's ballsy. Wow.
That is 21 lands? That is not very many lands.
The one that got, like, Danny Goldstein, who got 4th place.
It also, like, that's a much different list.
Yeah, I mean, this is a different list, yeah, but 21 lands is just ballsy, period.
Is he cackling? Like, is that occurring?
Nope, no cacklers.
No.
Oh, okay, but he's doing, like, the... Yeah, okay, he's doing...
Yeah, I mean, his list is a little all over the place, whatever. But, I mean, as far as, like, Black Red Zombie goes, it's a tier 1 deck. It's the best aggressive deck. I don't like it for, you know, a couple different reasons. You know, I hate Rakdos Guildgate, even though you have to play it. I hate how its removal isn't clean. You know, so, like, you know, if you try to game your deck to beat the mirror, then, you might get embarrassed by, like, Loxodon Smiter or, like, Restoration Angel, and your removal's never going to line up the way that you want it to. And then there are just, like, some, you know, there are some relatively bad draws with the deck, and there's no manipulation to really get yourself out of it. I tried Sign in Blood to, you know, try to mitigate some bad draws, and that card's just embarrassingly bad, and you can't afford to do that, especially in the mirror. Woo, man, you can't Sign in Blood, you're going to want to die. So, I mean, it's a very good deck, and I wanted that to be the deck that I was going to play moving forward. I planned on playing it in San Antonio. I actually have the deck box right here with the cards in it that my friend in Seattle let me to go play it before I audible to Mono Red. So that was the goal moving forward in Standard. I just can't win with the deck, and I understand people that do, because it is a very unforgiving deck if your draws are good. You know, 1-drop, 2-drop, Messenger, Aristocrat, they're dead, but, you know, it's not always a perfect world, so it is what it is.
Alright. Glenn, how do you feel about Black Red?
Yeah, there was a lot of it at the tournament. Heavy, I would say. I liked that the list that made it to the top 4 was a little different, off the beaten path, but what Cedric says is right on, especially about, like, how it pairs up against other decks. You know, like, at the end of the day, it's playing a bunch of base threats that don't all die to the same spells. Like, you have to have, like, the right spell for the right guy each time. And granted, when you have it, like, you're probably going to win most of the time, but when you don't, you're probably going to die most of the time also. So the format is definitely shifting to be, like, all about just going under or going way over. Like, Ali got real up and crazy in there, for example. But I think Danny Goldstein's list is an example of one of the ways you can try and get under. Like, even though he's not running Cackler, which you would expect to see in, like, a hyper-aggressive version of the deck, like, he is a little bit faster because he can pull off some of the combination like Bloodthorn Vampire and Blood Artist, and he can also go late with those cards as well. Like Gravecaller Blood Artist is a thing to do in the late game against the Zombies Mirror. Blood Artist is a card. He has power on both sides of the curve, basically. I think it's really bizarre he only ran 3 Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. Like, I'm sure he felt it was right. I definitely don't, though. That card seems like just awesome in that deck, and just one of the better cards in the color combination in general. Like, I would run the 4th one before I tried that Bullet Hellrider, for example. Like, it's much easier on the mana to cast the Aristocrat, too, and everyone's a little more prepared for Hellrider than they were this week. I think Hellrider stock is going slightly down as people become willing to defend themselves more interestingly, shall we say. Stuff like Searing Spear could find its way making it into those blue-white-red decks, for example, and that's like awesome against Hellrider, not good against Falcon Wrath Aristocrat at all. So,
All right, Steven, black-red?
Yeah, I like this lower list. I think that it's a sensible response to a format with a lot of black-red decks in it, is to build in a way that beats the mirror, and I think that this does a decent job of it. As far as just like the sheer number of black-red decks, I think it's just like a strong, aggressive, proactive strategy, which is fairly easy to play and like fairly straightforward, and like doesn't surprise me at all. I think that even if perhaps the format should have shifted a little bit further away from black-red than it has in this tournament, like you should still be expecting to see a bunch of black-red decks, because that's just what a lot of people are going to want to play, I think.
All right. So my next question is about the black-red mirror, which seems like a thing which is going to come up quite a bit if you have this number of black-red decks. I know last week on our show, Cedric described it as a horrible place where no one has fun, and they may or may not kill children. But how do you make your black-red deck such that it wins the mirror? Cedric?
So at the GP in San Antonio, if I was going to go, I was going to start 3 Tragic Slips. Because like Aristocrat is one of the most important cards in the mirror. There were some like signs of maybe like Blood Artist coming up because I was listening to it a bit online. Also some signs of 2-mana 1/1 Bloodthorn Vampire coming up. There are some cards that like work out really well. There are some cards that you think would work really well that are actually really terrible, like Vampire Nighthawk. It's actually very, very bad in the mirror because they have a lot of ways to go about killing it. Also, like Aristocrat just trumps it. Like the first place I went in the mirror was Sign in Bloods, Nighthawks, like more removal, and just like grinding them out and then going over the top of them with Aristocrats and Thunderbolt Hellkites, and it just does not work at all because like if you're not attacking, you're just losing. So I was very surprised that just didn't work at all.
That's what everyone else is trying to do, Cedric.
Yeah.
That's what every other deck is trying to do.
That's what
it doesn't work for them.
Yeah, that's what I tried 3 weeks. No, that's what I tried 3 weeks ago. That's what I tried 3 weeks ago. I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like Sign in Blood, then I'm gonna like land a Nighthawk, and they're not gonna be able to attack. It's gonna be sweet. And then I'm up on cards, and they're gonna draw their shitty tutus for 1, and then how are they gonna beat me? And the answer, of course, is very easily. I did not get close to winning. So,
I'm
basically,
sorry,
look, man, I'm the kind of guy, Glenn, who's gonna find out for himself. Okay, I have to play the games and just feel it like punch me in the face over and over and over again, and then be like, okay, it's not working. Like that's just how I operate.
The face feels like I got it.
Yeah,
okay.
that's exactly how I operate. Like you can just tell me that like something is the best card, and like unless I actually play with it, I just don't believe you, or it just doesn't function to me. So, like the one thing that I figured out in the mirror actually, which was really interesting. Like one day I'm offline streaming, and I realized I looked like a lot of my replays, and like the turn that I stopped attacking because like, I'm just like, well, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like be able to block, and then I'll be able to like play this spell next turn, and then it's gonna be awesome. And then like every time that I stopped attacking, I lost. So one day off stream, I was just like, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna attack every turn, regardless of the board position, regardless of anything, and just like make them have like the Aristocrat or the Hellrider or whatever, and I just started winning more in the mirror. So like to me, it just feels like the person who stops attacking first loses, and like that's my mirror strategy. It's just like even if I'm on the draw, in always with everything, And then, like, if they have, like, their aristocrat or whatever, like, was I going to be able to block that anyway? Like, no, so why would I stop attacking? Because it doesn't do anything. So, like, that's my actual mirror strategy that I came up with, and it, like, has worked reasonably well, even though it's not a deck I'm going to play anymore. But I don't really know if you can adjust the black-red deck to really fix the mirror. Tragic Slip was one of the cards that I found to be really good, and then, like, Mark of Mutiny / Traitor's Blood was, like, a situationally good card, but there are more situations where it's very bad as opposed to situations where it's very good. So that's pretty much it. I think it's just whoever draws better wins, which is a shitty place to be for a mirror.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Glenn,
Yeah.
what is your impression? You muted
Yeah,
yourself?
I'm muted.
Yeah, okay.
I was typing. Similar to Cedric's for sure. I think that the Bloodthorn Vampire strategy, like we dismissed it a little bit when we were talking about it a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And I actually think that the mirror is one of the places it excels. It seems like pretty reasonable to be able to do that kind of thing, especially to make those like marks and stuff really powerful, because the only way you're going to win a lot of your games when you fall behind is with something ridiculous like that. And it obviously like can seal the deal when you're ahead. Like when you're ahead, you don't even necessarily need something like Aristocrat or Vampire to make a Mark of Mutiny good, for example. So it kind of has reminded me of, you know, the way I approach WoW TCG, was just like, don't even pay attention to winning games like that you could probably win. Like when you win the die roll, it's a huge advantage. Just try and win the games where you lose the die roll and like build everything around that, and then, you know, the rest of the games will come easier. And I think that's kind of where I would be going with zombies right now. I have recently added the deck to the list of decks I play on Moto and can't win with. So I'll be trying to solve that. Yeah, it's an illustrious list.
I know that list all too
But
well.
I like having a lot of burn in it, similar to how Danny approached the deck. Like you'll notice he didn't have Mark of Mutinies in the main. Actually, I don't remember if he had them at all. Maybe he didn't have them at all. But he had just the full amount of Brimstone Volleys. And while I think Mark belongs somewhere in that style of list, I'm sure he just got a lot of people the same way everyone gets a lot of people with Brimstone Volley. Playing against the like John Bolding version from GB Charlotte, that is like literally the card I die to every time. They always have one card left in hand, and it's always Brimstone Volley, and they always tap 3 mana, and I'm just like right-clicking and ready to concede, just waiting for it to actually appear on the stack.
You bring the box up and you
I
have your
do.
cursor over yes. Yeah.
I've been here before, man. This is my home. So, having experienced the other end of the burn spells, I definitely like the idea of casting them. And like Cedric said, I think Tragic Slip is really good in this deck. I haven't liked it in other control decks because it's so hard to make the Morbid trigger when you want to. But in a deck that can be aggressive, it's much easier and thus much stronger. It's like an excellent answer to just... It kills a wide swath of things in the format, especially because you can trigger the Morbid. Like, that's why. It's the only removal spell that can do like the things we want to do against basically everybody. And it doesn't always do it, but it can do it to everybody, which literally no other spell can do. So
It's the answer to that thing Sed was complaining about like 30 minutes ago, right? The thing where he just didn't want to have Victim of Nights
it
in
is
his
the
hand?
closest thing to the answer that we have available.
Yes. And Restoration Angel still ruins you.
Yes, Restoration Angel is the card it is the worst against, for sure.
Sometimes you get tired of being ruined by Restoration Angel. I guess you could play Murder, as someone brought up, but
I would rather murder myself.
deal.
Alright, Steven, do you have black-red mirror related thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a little greedy to try to win on the draw. I think that the way you get above 50% in the black-red mirror is building your deck extremely focused, probably shifting the curve a little bit lower, playing the right removal spells, and focusing on winning on the play every single time, and just having a more consistent deck. And I think you get to like 55%. And I think that if you expect to do better than that in that matchup, you're just like kidding yourself. It's just a very, very aggressive, proactive, linear strategy, which I don't like. Because you can do that in other mirrors. You can board into a different game plan and like draw all your cards, and you're like, oh, I have this card and this card. I do a different thing now, huh? But I just don't think you can do that here at all.
I tried, I swear.
Yeah. That like doesn't have to be a bad thing though. Like being 50 to 55% in a matchup, you're probably 50 to 55% in lots of other matchups. And just because you don't feel like you make a ton of decisions in this particular one doesn't mean that, you know, you're actually worse off than you would be like a different deck. So.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
All right.
Someone wants me to show the cat again. I'll show the cat at the end.
It's the reward you get for watching the show.
Yeah, for making it all the way through.
My cat, however, is old and creaky and doesn't like being picked up and has now left anyway. That's what you get. All right. Much like me, it is also grumpy. What do you guys think about the 5-color Ali deck? I want to know what your thoughts on it. Is it possible for you to play this deck if you are not Ali? If you are not that human being, is it possible and or productive to play this deck and win matches? You may also note that he moved the door to the sideboard. Cedric, you may go.
No.
It's only good on the play. That's the problem.
Just, I can't. It hurts my eyes looking at the deck list. I just know. There's no way I could ever. And maybe this deck is actually just really good. I don't know. Just no. I just envision opening hands of just like 3 lands, Gazella, Rakdos Return, like Detention Sphere, Nicol Bolas, and I just would want to fight someone.
Well, it's a mulligan without Nicol Bolas, but
yeah,
once you get him in hand, gotta keep him.
Yeah, I gotta keep them. Yeah, that's all. I just envision just the hands with this deck just have to be, the range of hands with this deck just have to be wild. Just absolutely wild. It seems like if this deck doesn't Farseek on turn 2, it is horrific. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before, be wrong again. But yeah, this is a deck I would never, ever play. And I mean, obviously Ali's had success with it, so more power to him because this is like Ali's range. But yeah, Adam, to answer your question, can someone that's not Ali do well with this deck? I don't think so. I think Ali and Conley fall into like the same spectrum of just like their decks are just like they look horrific on paper, and like those are the guys that can win with them, and then they're the ones that do. So,
well, I actually went to like Chapin instead because I know he used to play those like mono Grixis like don't do anything decks that just like had Titans, and people would start playing them on Moto, and they would do like literally nothing for 10 turns and then die, and then.
Yeah.
That was when I was streaming all the time, so people would come ask me, they'd be like, what do you think of this deck? And I'd be like, I think if you aren't Chapin, you shouldn't play this deck.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if you guys felt the same way about Ali's deck. Glenn, what do you think?
I kind of don't. Like, it's definitely Ali's wheelhouse, and he has, like, a sense of these decks. But I think he might actually be onto something with it. Like, I think he's still pretty far off. But, like, the actual core... The core things that make the deck like good and viable, like it has Farseek, so it can get ahead on ramp, and then it has like, you know, the artifact that functions very similarly. And I even think Chapin in his article for SCG proposed that like Rakdos Keyrune might be a much better option to give the deck like an additional threat and a defensive measure, which I actually think is pretty interesting. That might be part of the puzzle, as it were. But then, so you've got the mana there. You know, you've got Lingering Souls, which is a pretty powerful defensive element still in the format. Much better against decks without Thundermaw Hellkite, so its stock is going down because more decks are playing it. But you can use it, you know, before they cast a Hellkite defensively, too. It's good in those turns. So I think that's reasonable, too. Huntmaster is definitely good, especially in a Farseek deck. Thragtusk is playable in the standard format. Supreme Verdict is the removal spell Cedric wants to play, and this deck can play it. It can play more than one. Ali's just playing one. I don't think he should be only playing one, but he is. Curse of Death's Hold is a card that I think is like pretty realistic in this format. Some kind of whatever top end you want. You know, you can play literally any card, so you can just kind of pick. I think Nicol Bolas and Gisela are reasonable ones. There are others, I'm sure. Sphinx's Revelation is a defining card. So like you have these cards that are all like definitely good, and then you just kind of have to like, you know, season with whatever else you want to play. And talking with Ali, like there were a lot of cards that I just felt like were straight up mistakes when I was seeing his list. I was like, Gristlebrand seems like mediocre at best. Like I guess it's a guy, but you know, it's like you can only play it with a lantern, and there just are cards you could be playing instead that you don't need a lantern to play. Like you can just cast them; they're legal. So I don't really like that one, and it's just asking you to get punished. It's also a creature that gets Selesnya charmed, which you don't have a lot of. Like Gisela is another one, obviously, but I think Gisela can randomly kill the opponent a lot more frequently, where they just like tap out to attack you, and you like have a Huntmaster and a Thragtusk token left afterwards or something, and you're just like Gisela, get some, and they're like, oh, that worked out poorly. So it gives a few more free wins, as stupid as that sounds. Um, and beyond that, like the card quality of the deck is good. So as long as you just draw more spells than your opponent, you should probably beat most opponents because your cards are better than theirs. They're stuff like Nicol Bolas. That said, I think it's not there. Like it needs something. Another card we talked about adding was Mana Bloom to the deck as like a way to sort of pseudo Farseek on turn 2 more frequently, which definitely like amps the power level of the deck significantly. I think you have to restructure it to go like turn 2 Mana Bloom, turn 3 4-drop, turn 4 another 4-drop or something like that more often. And right now it just doesn't have enough 4-drops to do that. So you'd have to rebuild it a little bit, but I think that might be viable. Like it seems totally reasonable if your game plan is just to like do something more powerful than the opponent slightly faster, and then just keep doing it over and over until the end of the game. That seems fine. Ali, to his credit, went like 6-1 or 7-1 against Black Red Aggro in that tournament. So
You said you played against it 7 times or something?
yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. He lost when he tried. Yeah, he was undefeated going to the last round. He played to try and get a higher seed in the top 8 since he was already locked, and that was the first match he lost to Black Red Aggro, which was to the. I'm trying to remember who it was actually. I can't. I know he drew with the player he beat in top 8, so they did not actually play in the Swiss, but it was one of the other ones. So there you go. Like I think the deck must be at least somewhat real or like getting there. You definitely are somewhat at the mercy of your lands, but the beauty of it is also there are just a ton of cards people definitely haven't tried for the deck because how many cards are legal in standard right now? Because you can play all of them, so get cracking.
And
Testing's a bitch.
sometimes we I just super quickly, I know you mentioned Mana Bloom. I think it was Tom Martell in coverage like last weekend that mentioned the Channel Fireball tried that in their Bant deck because Farseek was just like the best thing to be doing. So they were just like, shitty Farseek, sign me up. And they like eventually determined it wasn't good enough or something. But yeah, I don't think that's a totally unreasonable thing to try. I know that like both Cedric and Steven made expressions like you were waving a skunk at them when you said that, but
you definitely have to restructure the deck. Like as is, you couldn't run more than like one without doing some significant damage.
all right, Steven, do you have any door related thoughts?
I don't know. I'm sort of thinking about formats past. There seem like there have been quite a few formats where it's like, oh yeah, clearly you have to play this aggro deck or this mid-rangey deck, and it turns out that actually no, like you play Gifts Ungiven and 4 different colors and these exact cards, and that's exactly what you need. Like, you need 2 Yosei or else you lose. But once you have 2 Yosei, you can't lose anymore. Or like, actually, no, you have to play Mirari's Wave, and your Brush Hopper has to be in your sideboard, or else, like, that's where all your effort. So I can, like, definitely see a deck like this just breaking the format. Like, I could see this being 60 to 70% of the meta in 2 months. Not kidding at all. But I don't know if it will be or not. And I don't know what cards it would take to actually get it there. I think that it's the sort of deck that can just, it not only does something extremely powerful, but it does the most powerful thing and can always choose to do the thing other people can't beat. So once you get it working and get it surviving the linear aggressive strategies, there isn't much you can do against it anymore.
But how you build that deck to do that is a good question.
Yes, that is a good question.
So in summary, that was like 1.5 votes for you can play this deck if you're not a Lee, and 1.5 votes for you can't. Is that Is that accurate?
It's a deck I wish that I could play in Vegas, but I don't have it like solved enough that I feel comfortable.
Yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I should play it. I feel an audible
so
coming on.
quickly how the winds can change.
I feel a bit of an audible coming on here.
I think
can
like
only-
Staff of Nin might be really good in that deck. Like if you're in like Curse of Death's Hold and Staff of Nins.
Yeah, of course.
Like 2 and
Why
2?
wouldn't it be?
I mean,
Like
you can
that?
cast it every time, right? Like, doesn't even matter what color your land's tapped for. So.
Perfect. But I think Staff of Nin and Curse of Death's Hold is actually just like a pretty adorable little thing that nobody else is doing in the format. And it's especially good if you're doing something like Huntmaster, as retarded as it sounds. Like, yeah, a card in completely different colors, but you know, like getting to 4 is a pretty good number. You can get to 4, that's pretty good. I got a 2/2 wolf on defense and untapped Staff, and then there's a curse in play. What are you gonna do about it? Like, come at me.
Yeah, come at me, bro.
Probably gonna kill you with a dragon.
I can kill the dragon. It's fine. We got the dragon. It's not a problem.
Your deck can't kill a dragon.
You
Maybe
gotta
someday.
play ultimate price.
Maybe we'll
stuff.
get there.
Aerial Predation. Get some.
Yeah, that's easy to cast. I could use the 2 life, especially with
There
the
you go.
rocks. Especially with the rocks Faith Mender. Ship 4 life, actually. Thanks.
God, that's so good with your Huntmaster, too. All your pieces work together.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to message Ali. Ali, you missed the card. You missed the card, Ali.
I really wonder how he figures out like the cards, you know, like the one he misses, because
My
like he
guess-
definitely does. Like he adds a new one every now and then, and he's like, oh, I just want to know like when he found out about that card, like what was the event.
Do you think he just, like, looks through limited sideboards that people leave on the table? Like,
That's reasonable.
what these are?
My guess is he starts with his mana base, and he's like, okay, so I can cast these cards on turn 2 and these cast on turn 4. And then, like, from the mana base, the deck just builds itself.
I guess so.
Well, I know they asked Jerry in, like, a deck tech at the last PT, I think when he was playing the Niv Magus deck, and he was just like, oh, I just open Gatherer and search by CMC. Just look at all of them. Like, maybe that's what he does, man. Who knows? Who knows? Alright, well, let us talk a little bit about Legacy, because it feels like we have been talking about Standard forever.
Coon's Age, even.
Yes, an actual Coon's Age. The Legacy Open was won by one Shaheen Sorani with Esper Stoneblade.
Luckiest man alive.
The
Disturbing. Disturbing.
Okay.
Claims of luckiest man alive. This should be good.
He chump blocked a lethal Tarmogoyf for like 7 turns running before coming back to win the game. It was something just completely insane.
What else was he gonna do, man?
I mean, he had a Supreme Verdict. He floated it for like those 7 turns, like throwing away Snapcaster Mages and like brainstorming and just chumping over and over and over. And then the one turn where he actually brainstorms the Supreme Verdict to the top of his deck, his opponent's like, draw him, you. Shaheen's like, I had it. Like, it's so insane. Like, watching it, I was like, he's just going to get hemmed. He's so greedy. He's so greedy. And the one turn where he main phase brainstorms it to the top of his deck. Ugh.
You sound jealous.
Nauseating. Like, just so gross. He ran well in that top 8. That's what I'm trying to say.
That is professional level Magic the Gathering, boys and girls.
Also played reasonably well.
Watch,
He did run pretty
watch and learn. Alright, I think we're gonna do everyone pick a thing. If you guys pick shitty things, I might have to ask you questions afterwards, but I'm gonna let you guys pick a thing. We're gonna see how it goes. So everyone, pick your thing.
Alright, got it.
Alright,
Picking
Cedric,
things. Oh, I didn't pick.
bring me your thing.
Alright, Deathrite Shaman is a real good Magic card. Real good. Like, real good in Legacy. There's a lot of fetch lands, so the mana ability, it can act like a Noble Hierarch for multiple turns. So that's a bonus. And then, like, the other abilities are just both really good. Like, the green ability are moving, like, you know, any creatures from the graveyard, which is something that, you know, Scavenging Ooze gets used for, and, like, the black ability to, like, stop Snapcaster Mage and other things. This is just a super versatile card, you know, easy on the mana, and it just does a lot of nice things for the decks that it's in, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this card just keep moving and moving up and up and up, and just making it more and more and more decks as we move along here. Kind of like the progression that Scavenging Ooze had, really, where like it was like fringe card to like, whoa, this card does that, and it's like, whoa, that card does that, and then just like then people are just like, man, and it attacks for 5, like, are you serious? and it's like, this card's really good. Like, what set's it from? And everyone's like, I don't know. But
It's from like $20, right? Isn't that the
Yeah.
set it's from?
yeah, it's from just some. I don't even. It's like some commander set or whatever.
That's
But
correct.
yeah, Deathrite Shaman is a nice card. I know people are skeptical at the start, but yeah, this card seems tailor-made for Legacy, with just it being very cost-efficient and having a lot of text, and all the text is extremely relevant. So be on the lookout for this one moving forward. I think this is just the beginning of a card that I don't think is going to be like dominant or anything. It's just going to be a good card, just always. That's all.
So I don't think I actually said what was in the top 8, but I should specify there were 4 bug decks in this top 8.
Yeah.
Like 4 decks which were black, blue, and green. They were like somewhat different in their bugness, but they were 4 bug decks and they all had Deathrite Shamans. So this is whence the soliloquy on Deathrite Shaman comes from.
Yes.
Glenn, what is your legacy thing?
My legacy thing is that I think we can, at least for now, declare Maverick a tier 2 deck in Legacy. It's been like pretty competitive for the last few months, but it's like really bad Miracles matchup with the addition of Terminus and everything, just really changing things around for it. And now Deathrite Shaman, which is actually like a pretty obnoxious card to have to face with your Knight of the Reliquary deck. Like, I would not want to be entering a tournament playing Maverick right now. It sounds like totally miserable, and it already didn't sound that good. So that's my call as a piece of advice. For the record, I am probably planning to play Goblins in Vegas at this point, unless I find something.
What?
It feels like a deck that has a lot of game against Miracles and Bug and other tempo strategies like Bug. So it sounds like a good deck to me.
When do you want my deck list?
I'm gonna wait until like Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday's good.
Will it
That's when I pull my deck. I'm
like-
leaving for Vegas Wednesday, so I have to pull my deck list tomorrow.
Just let me know, and I'll be sure to give you an inferior
Ship it, buddy.
Will your deck list change like right before the tournament? Should he only get it then?
Well, I only bring a certain number of cards to tournaments, and they are the cards I get to play with. So.
Have you had some bad experiences in the past? Like.
No, I just don't own cards. So.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
All right, well, make sure you pull your Warren Instigators, my friend.
Yeah, I like Goblin's position right now, and I hate Mavericks. That's my thing.
All right. Steven, what is your legacy thing?
Sneak and show. They stopped playing Omniscience, man. I'm like shell shocked. I am like trauma. There's one in there like way deep in the standings, down where like the shame decks go. These top 16 ones.
Are you aware this is a legacy tournament? The shame decks go wherever they want in a legacy tournament.
Yeah, don't tell them where to go.
God. Now they're playing sneak attack again, and this one has a Simian Spirit Guide, so it can like get you for 2. That was the real heartbreaking thing, because like the first one didn't have omniscience, and I was like, well, there's another in the top 16, maybe. And then like the difference between those deck lists was like -1 Giant Thing +1 Simian Spirit Guide.
Sure.
Dark day. Dark day.
I began to cry.
Have you ever gone manual with a Simian Spirit Guide, Steven?
Yes.
It's a very
Yes, I have.
depressing experience.
I
do not dispute that particular deck building choice, but I think we could have passed it for free. That's all I'm saying.
All right, well, let's raise the bar a little bit here. Have you gone manual with Sakura Tribe Elders?
I think I finished the job with Beast Attack, but I've definitely gone into like 12.
Yeah. Someone like actually got me
Cool,
with
no?
the legendary like 3 extractions or whatever, so I had to attack him with Tribe Elders once, and I'm pretty sure I killed him. But
Embarrassing.
yeah, well, this was the like old blue-green deck.
Did he name like ST next time?
I don't remember.
Get rid of that one.
I just remembered, like, I boarded in Ambassador Laquatus once against someone, which was one of the things we had to board in against Cranial Extraction, and my rock opponent just boarded out all his terrors. So I just cast it on turn 3, and then, like, milled him every turn for the next 3 turns, and he died. It was a very enjoyable experience.
Yeah, other cards you guys have never heard about.
Dude, people don't know what Ambassador Laquatus does. They are not.
I'm googling it right now. It's
They are
gonna
I
not.
know.
pause
It's a
this.
1 blue blue, 1
guy is
3 that you pay
probably
3
not
and
on
mill 3
Google.
cards.
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite win conditions for cube control decks like 4 years ago. And they just printed a million planeswalkers, and now they're much, much better.
It's been a little while since I've seen the old Ambassador. That's all. I was confusing them with that like 6-mana Cephalid from Odyssey that you just win the game.
Oh, the
so you
6/3?
cast it.
Laquatus is champion? Like the Nightmare
Yeah.
6 life?
No. It's like the 6-mana.
Oh, Abishan?
Like yeah, Abishan.
Card that actually says the game is over? Like,
Yeah, it just taps their team every
Yeah,
turn or
we
something.
didn't play good cards like that.
no. That card costs too much, man. And it attacks for 3 times as much, which is...
Yeah.
We're not interested in going there.
That's you're dead in your next brawl step.
There's Abishan, Cephalid Emperor. There, look at that old boy. What a man. 6-mana, 3/3. They don't make him like they used to.
Yeah. Someone mentioned the Sands of Delirium. I don't even remember what tournament that was in. I remember looking at that deck list. Are you guys familiar with the Sands of Delirium deck list? I think it was in a Bant deck that just decided like the Frown Yard was not enough. We needed to board some backup Frown Yards.
Oh.
And I mean, while we're at it, why even take up a land drop? Like, let's just get it in there.
Luis had 3 Sands of Delirium in his deck at the GP in Toronto or in San Antonio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Just psychotic behavior.
Yeah. Target your library.
Yeah.
Take
just
X.
Just unreasonable behavior by Luis there. Cannot
Right. I believe you people have picked sufficiently good things that I'm willing to let the legacy pass. I just wanted to pick as I just wanted to pick as my thing to congratulate Jarvis U for top 8ing legacy. Former Gamestate member, cast member Jarvis U.
Congratulations, Jarvis.
Good job,
Good work,
Jarvis.
Jarvis. Good battles, everyone. Alright. Well, that will do it for us today, I think. We've run about an hour and 20 minutes, give or take. Done some talk, done some things. Good work, everyone. So let's do the shoutouts and get out of here. Yes, good. Alright, Cedric, you may shout out first.
Alright, testing Legacy this week on stream. I'm going to be playing Goblins just so I am refreshed in what I'm doing for the Legacy tournament this weekend. My standard deck for Vegas this weekend will be given to me by one Jerry Thompson. I have set up something where I have a friend in Seattle who gives me the cards for my deck list. And I have Jerry, whose decks I never play with. Ever. I've played a deck designed by Jerry Thompson approximately one time in a Magic tournament over my 10 years of competitive play. I got 9th place in the PTQ with it. So you would think I would do this more often.
What
but
deck
I hate
was
the
it?
way that it was Counterbalance. And I wanted to die.
That's why you don't do it more often.
Which balance deck?
This was like this was at Grand Prix Dallas like 4 years ago when like Aggro Loam was the best deck and 5-color Zoo, Raphael Levy won back-to-back Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And it had like Damnation, Balance Top. I think it won with Tarmogoyf. It was like that deck when Balance plus Top was coming around.
Well, I know that Balance like was the traditional kick you in the pants if you're playing Loam decks because they're just like, I can cast this every turn, and you're like, yeah, it's still a 2. Like,
yeah, you can still count it every. Yeah, maybe they won with Psychothog. I don't remember, but yeah, that's the only time I've ever played a Jerry Thompson deck. I got 9th on breaks, 9th on tie breaks in the PTQ. I've never ever played a deck designed by him ever again. So typically, what happens is I ask him for a deck list, he sends it to me, and I delete it because it looks disgusting. But I have found a way around this time. I have a friend in Seattle who I send a Facebook message to for a deck when I need a deck, and he gives me the cards. I go to his house and I pick him up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Jerry send him the deck list Thursday, and then I'm going to go to my friend's house on Friday, have him hand me the deck box, and there's nothing I can do then. There's no way for me to get out of it.
So you're not even gonna like know what's in the box until you open it. It's gonna be like
What's in the box?
It's gonna be a literal Pandora's deck box. That's what's occurring here.
That's correct. And I know that Jerry will build me a good deck, and there's no way for me to auto it because I don't have any way to get cards. So, when I get the deck list and start driving to the airport, I'm locked in. There's no going back then. So that's exactly what needs to be done here. Now, again, yeah, I'm playing Goblins in Legacy, streaming this week on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And yeah, I'll be in Vegas this weekend with Glenn Jones battling it out. So it's gonna be fun.
Maybe.
All right, Glenn, shout out.
Yep, as Cedric mentioned, I will indeed be in Las Vegas this week, heading out Wednesday. And I'll be playing in that event before driving from Vegas to LA for the Invitational. So should be good times, good times. Looking forward to it. Beyond that, yeah, I don't have any real news. Like I said, I'm probably playing Goblins in Legacy, and for Standard, I don't really have anything. So hopefully, I find something cool, or I like Jerry's deck, but I probably won't. Or yeah, maybe Black Red actually is good for me. That would be nice. Good change of pace. Beyond that, yeah, not much going on. So I'm looking forward to my vacation, which will start very, very soon.
Steven?
I'm just gonna show the cat. If that's okay.
Yeah,
I
rock
talked a
on.
lot on the show already. This one's Sage. So can I be a cat guy for a second? I will.
Can I stop you? Like,
End the show. We already said bye. Sage is like the best cat because we're pretty sure she belonged to someone, and then she like got abandoned or left in a yard or something, and she got picked up at a shelter, and she was pregnant and had her litter at the shelter, and we got to adopt her and her like favorite kitten, and they are like the absolute best cats. Just the absolute best cats. She's so cuddly. I think this is ludicrous enough now, and I better stop.
The tale of you opening a bunch of cats, yeah.
all right.
Well, you got one.
Must be nice to have such a charmed life.
It's pretty awesome. Cats are sweet.
Okay, tough but fair. Are we done now?
Yeah, are we done with the cat thing? Are you gonna thank people for watching the show, or are we just gonna have the awkward silence?
Okay.
If you want to see more of my cats, you can tune in next week.
Twitch.tv/cats.
I just want to say I will almost certainly be at GP Toronto, even though no one here is going because you all suck. But I will probably be there. I mean, I live in that city, even though, as with almost all GPs, they are not actually being held in the city. They're held in some warehouse in, like, suburbia next to the airport. So. But,
what are you gonna play?
Oh, I don't think I'm gonna play in the event. I'll probably just...
Oh, man!
I mean...
Really?
What the hell?
I don't know.
We can't get you a deck? You
Well,
want to give some beatdowns?
not really. I mean, I could, I guess. I don't know. I am just not super interested in, like... It's like a constructed GP. It's a modern GP.
How does someone go to a tournament and just not play?
It's, like, pretty easy.
I don't understand. I don't know how anyone's ever done that ever.
You play the cube drafts, man. I have done this before.
Yeah,
Let me tell
I'll, like,
you how
probably
you do
do
it.
that. I don't know.
You show up, you start drinking. Someone has a cube.
Can't someone get you like a burn deck or something?
Well, they probably could. I don't know. I just have no desire to do that.
Wow. All right. I'm gonna be mad if you're there and I don't see you in the standings, like after round 3 or whatever. I'm actually gonna be angry. Just want you to know.
Okay.
Just gonna go there and just get your.
I
just
appreciate
get
your
burn up.
forewarning of that anger.
Yeah, I will
Like-
be mad. I will type to you in caps lock instead of normal font to show
Shit.
my anger.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna like. I don't know what I'm gonna do about that.
Just consider that before the tournament starts. All right. That's all. We
Okay.
can get. I want you to play. I want you to play and dominate.
Okay. I like don't want that. We have to fight about it.
This is the most hilarious just confrontation. It's like so. Oh man.
Well, I mean, so far he's threatened me with caps lock text messages and his desires.
I'm a man of my word. I'll do that.
I appreciate that.
All right, fair enough. You're not gonna play? Fine. Fine.
Okay.
Cedric is dummy here.
All right.
I'm gonna caps lock you right now. I don't mind. You can close the show. I'm gonna caps lock you though.
Okay. Alright. Well, thanks for watching, and that got a little weird at the end. Bye.